Hello Geeks, Ghouls and April Fools. Today we're doing a reading vlog of this book called The Cats, which is in traditions of the rats, because if you have a hit book about man-eating rats, you can only top it with their natural predator, man-eating cats. This is by Sharman. It was published in the 80s. This is April 2nd. I was supposed to read this on April 1st. However, I had to finish the book I was reading for March, and it really destroyed my heart. So we go to this 1977 book, The Cats. It's an animal attack book by Sharman. Yes, I've read The Rats recently. I saw this book, I think 6 months ago, on a used bookstore. I was like, yes, I want to read this as a reading vlog because this looks insane. Since I got The Rats in between, I decided to read The Rats and then give it a read. And since we're in April and I'm part of a readathon about nostalgic books and animal attack books is a prompt here, I'm reading this. So I hope this is fun. I hope this book is trashy and insane and fun, not trashy and boring, but we'll see. Alright, chapter 1 is done. It is a hot day in London, so you know it will be a horror novel because of that alone. And we have a boy who is feeding some cats because an American guy paid him to. And there is a blackout. One cat escapes its cage. Then the boy is acting weird and is pushed to open the cage and release the cats, I guess. So we probably have telepathic cats or something. No bloodshed though, which is a shame. If the book is a horror novel and starts without a bloodshed chapter, then that's bad news. Alright, chapter 2 did deliver. We start with John English, who is an American in London. He's driving his sports car in London, trying to escape the hate. Of course, he's from West Virginia, so he does know what heat is like, but London is not a place made for hot summers. And as he's driving his sports car, he's downing a beer, because that's, I guess that's traditional English driving. And he sees a dog on the road, so he maneuvers to not hit it, to avoid hitting it. And as he stops, having saved the dog, he notices that a car is following him and he has stopped. It's a black car and it had hit the dog instead. So this makes him realize that his father, who is very influential, is looking for him, and he steps on the gas and tries to escape the other car. He takes a sharp turn and the other car goes off-road and crashes, because of course it is. And then he visits one of his old college professors. He's the American guy who has employed the boy to feed the cats in chapter 1. And they talk. His professor is giving him a big glass of whiskey and says, down the thing, don't sip at it, because everybody's alcoholic in this book, I guess. And I wish I had something stronger here, because this is going to be one hell of a ride. So our guy, John English, is living under an assumed identity in the UK because his father, an influential politician and probably the next president of the US, is looking for him, but instead he is in the UK studying biology. His sister killed herself, and that's haunting him, but that doesn't matter at all, because he's talking to his professor, who used to give lectures on biological warfare, and his lectures were cut short before the final lecture was given. But he connected the pieces and he decided to continue the research So he's making a biological weapon out of cats, and his professor asks him, "Have you exposed the cats to extreme heat?" And this is where the chapter ends. And yes, it does, because there was a power failure in chapter 1 and the air condition went off. So yeah, I guess our protagonist is the guy who made a pack of biologically engineered cats to be made into a human weapon, and they escape. I'm all in for sympathetic characters. Alright, I just finished chapter 4, which basically means I'm a quarter into the book. Oh boy, this thing is balls out crazy and not quite entertaining. In chapter 3, we have this, the first cat attack, I guess. We are in an MP's house. He was sent in Northern Ireland, and he got a reputation of being too lenient with, let's say, the natives. And this book is set in the 70s, so you pretty much know what's happening in North Ireland. And that means that the English side hates him, the Irish side also hates him. The displeasure of the Irish side is at that time deadly, so he has to take measures. He hires a security team and as well as a well-trained Doberman. So this Doberman Wolf is in the yard on a leash, and he gets jumped by 4 cats. Of course, Wolf goes down fighting. He offs 3 of the cats, which, yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a book about killer cats, have their first attack being overwhelming. At this point, it feels very underwhelming, fighting a dog and 4-1 and sustaining 3 casualties. On chapter 4, we return to John English, who, no, he's not from Little House on the Prairie, and he's talking to his professor, and the professor says that the bacteria he injected the cats with goes haywire when exposed to extreme heat, like the heat wave in London, I guess, and that after, while doing his lectures, he was contacted by the UK Army to do more research and weaponize his discovery, the discovery that John English replicated. But he was scared by what he found out, how lethal these cats are. So John English phones, since the boy he is hiring to feed the cats is not there, he's at school. He phones a neighbor and learns about the power outage. So he's shocked and he runs to find out what's happening along with his professor. Because apparently it's when you're a scientist and you decide to remake a biological weapon, you keep it in an urban area without precautions. Makes sense. Meanwhile, the boy who was taking care of the cats is the son of that MP from Northern Ireland, and now his father is a Minister of Education, and since he's a socialist, when the newspapers learned that he was attending a public school, aka a private school, and a private school, they created a scandal. So his father sent him to a state school. Public school means private school in the UK. I mean, that's the UK for you. I don't know, really. And there, his son, who is a bookworm and very weak, I think he's got a kidney problem, is bullied relentlessly. And since he was in the lab and he was exposed to the cats, he has lost consciousness. He feels like he doesn't remember what's happening. He just knows that the cats were missing and he has to inform the American guy. He goes to school, but he is kind of sick, kind of lost, and he's getting relentlessly bullied. Another boy leaves a dump in his desk as a practical joke, because yes, apparently that's what happens but he finds the character to tell on him, to the teacher. So the other boy, the fat bully, who is from an abusive family, decides to take his revenge. He's following the boy who seems weird and lost to a ruined church. He goes into the ruins, and there he encounters the MP's son, who looks him in the eyes and something is different. He feels hypnotized, and then the cats jump on him, but that's happening in a fade to black scene. So yes, where it comes to bloodshed, the cats don't deliver. They just, they attack a dog and a bully. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really impressed up to this point. I was expecting more balls out crazy stuff, but it's still early, and we get there towards the middle of this kinds of books, to the insane parts. So let's see where this goes. What's the difference between a horror book and a horror movie? A bad horror book and a bad horror movie, to be more precise. The bad horror movie is probably fun. A bad horror book, even if it's nonsensical and out there, is probably not, and it's starting to be this case on this one. Okay, let's ignore a lot of inconsistencies, like the MP's son working for a rogue scientist making a biological weapon in London, and he does that purely for self-promotion, I guess. It doesn't make much sense. And things don't get much sense either, because we have a new character introduced in chapter 5, a police detective called Crowther. It starts with him having a phone call that the MP's dog was killed, so he leaves his one-night stand, he combs his hair meticulously, gets well dressed, and he goes to the MP's house only to see the carnage. He is taking some notes, and while he is doing that, the MP's son comes in. He is clearly weird, shaken, and he goes to the slaughterhouse, the slaughter scene. He sees the dog that's dead, and he doesn't care. Then he sees the cats, and he starts wailing like a grieving cat, and pushes his face into their corpses, so there's blood and entrails on him, and that weirds everybody out. And then we get to John English and Professor Vole, his supervisor, I guess, or his inspiration, and they talk about Professor Vole's experiment and how it went haywire, and how it's the most killer bacteria, because there is only a small part of it can enter into the cat's organism and change their brain and make them faster, stronger, and more intelligent, and it sometimes affects people, and how he left the project when the army asked him to make a strain that infects people too. And they get to his apartment, they see that the kids are empty. John English is calling the MP's son, because yes, it makes perfect sense to make a secret experiment where you're on the run and employ the son of a high-profile politician. Yeah, this book makes no sense. It's nonsensical and not crazy enough. It's good plot holes, alright? But then again, it's a book about killer cats. So the detective picks up the phone, and thus we're left in a cliffhanger of sorts. Yeah. On chapter 7, we're back to Crowther, who returns to the police station. He goes to see his supervisor, who is drunk. He is sleeping on his desk with some takeout curry and a near empty bottle of whiskey. So Crowther does the reasonable thing. He goes near him, he takes the bottle of whiskey, takes a swig at it, and then wakes him up and tells him that about the dog and something strange going on with the cats. And as he's ousted by his hangover Scott is chief investigator. He's a detective inspector. He goes to write a report, and then he hears that there are cats all over London. And then we're transported to a live radio show where the very bored host listens to the traffic reporter telling him that cats are running in the streets all over London, but he ignores that because he's jaded and he's thinking about his date in the evening and how bored he is. Things are going insane at the moment, yet something is off with this book. Maybe a different setup would be preferable, I guess, or whatever. Let's see where it goes. Alright, chapter 8 is crazy indeed, and up to this point the experience has been pretty boring with some out there moments, but here on it's full on carnage, and I haven't finished the chapter. I have to go through what I'm reading because this is the good part, what you're here from. So it all starts in page 62 out of a 160 pages book. It starts with, of course, a prostitute, because sex sells, so we have to titillate the reader, right? So we have this prostitute, she's 39 and very bored, but her bell rings and there's a client for her. It's well dressed but very ugly Arab, and I guess yes, there is some racist undertones here. There were some not so PC parts about the blacks having a revolt earlier in the book, in the previous chapter, but yeah, this happens in 70s book, and they're not quite PC, they're guilty pleasures of sort. Let's call it cats, it's about money and cats, alright? So she is with her client, who is very awkward, is on top of her, and this is where I was really surprised, because as he's on top of her he becomes very heavy and he is screaming because apparently there are cats all over him, and they grab him and then they pull him off the bed, and Molly, the prostitute, is watching as he is dragged off the bed and into another room. In agony, she tries to close the door, but it's impossible because a cat is blocking it, and then the door opens and we fade to black. But that's a great scene. That's what you want to read when it's an animal attack book. Some out there imaginative gore, even though it's not too gory, it never goes into many details. This book it's sort of like written not in depth, really. It's not going in depth. Its descriptions are very light. It's like going through stuff, so lose some impact, but that scene of the man being dragged off the bed is just way too good. Then we get to an old actress who she walks in sticks, and she goes to the park to feed the birds, and then a cat attacks the birds and she gets mad. She tries to hit it with his stick, only to be attacked by another cat. And then we get Kurt, who is a German stoner. He moved to England from Amsterdam when things got too heavy because of his drug use. So he lives in a commune where everybody is taking unemployment benefits. Because yes, let's add some bad stoners mooching off the taxpayers' money, and he's having an LSD, he's going to a trip, and doesn't realize that the commune is attacked by cats who are eating everybody in his trip. And then we have another scene in chapter 8 of general insanity, and I'm off to read it. Final part has a chauffeur who starts off shoving his hand to the car horn because a woman cut him off and he won't take it. He has just finished work, so he puts on regular clothes and he drives around. He drives home in his expensive car, pretending to be rich. And as he's doing that, he feels something brush by him. He stops the car, and that means that cats start jumping into the car and attacking him. He steps on the gas to escape them and crashes the car onto a bus. And yes, there is mayhem. Of course, there is a baby that is attacked by the cats, because of course you have to have a baby in a romantic book. And yeah, that's overall craziness. It never goes to gory. It feels a bit, the writing feels a bit but yes, there's some insane gore, and that could make a great movie, I guess. An entertaining trash horror movie. It's an entertaining trashy book. That's not too entertaining. Alright, the insanity continues. In chapter 9, we return back to the police station and the radio station. Our detective protagonist, Crowther, along with the detective inspector, they take the car to see what's happening on the streets because they receive a lot of panic calls, and that's not a great idea, as Crowther agrees. At the radio station, the cats attack the producer, the Australian guy who was very bored with his life, finds out that cats have attacked the radio station, and some of the people there have barred the entrance with empty cabinets, yet the cats break through, and the way they break through is very gory, as a head of a cat pops out of broken metal and it's scarred by the shards, yet still goes on, and there's a big fight with the people in the radio station fighting the cats with any sort of weapon they can find. So yeah, that's kind of fun. In the Crowther side, he surveys the carnage the cats caused on the traffic, the way they attack cars and the ruins of cars and bodies strewn all over the place. He witnesses a school teacher trying to evacuate the children, 6 and 7-year-old children, from the school she's in, and while the children escape, the cat catch up to her because she's a bigger, older woman, and Crowther tries to save her, to drag her away from the cats who are all over her. And yes, there's a fight. First it's policemen, then the firefighters come and they take hoses and hose the cats away in a scene that's straight out of the rats, where the firefighters are hosing the rats away. However, the cats use the cars for cover. Some go underneath, some go on top, and so they are able to break the fire hose streams and they attack the firemen. But this is where paratroopers come in. They start spraying the cats with bullets, and then car starts to explode, so they drive the cats away. And that's pretty much the insanity we read at this point. And yes, Basil Barry, the producer, the radio producer, is broadcasting a message for people the cats are attacking. And we're halfway through the book at this point, page 87. This book is like 155 pages long, so it's a brisk read. It's like you can finish it in an afternoon, I guess. Yeah, there is enough insanity here to appease any gorehounds, and the slow start is nothing like what's happening in here. I'll go on reading for a while now. I won't stop chapter to chapter because I don't think there's enough to mention unless something good pops up, and I'll be back, I don't know, probably at the third quarter mark or something. Oh well, things start to fall into place. I have finished chapter 11, page 100. So yes, a little bit earlier than I thought, because at the end of the previous chapter of chapter 9. Yes, in chapter 11, John English and Professor Vole go to the police station and are interviewed by Crowther, who believes that they're telling the truth and tries to talk to his superiors about their involvement with the cats. Then on chapter 11, we see Senator Duke English, who is the future Republican candidate for presidency of the US, and also the father of John English, who has come to London to find his estranged son. And we get into his family history, and we learn about how he bullied his teenage daughter for her plain appearance, that led her to taking her own life, because that's apparently what good fathers do, and this led to his son being estranged. How he opened the lead to the whole situation a year ago from when this book takes place, and he started looking for his son so he can look good for the press, having his entire family together, gag him, and because he understands that now that he's hearing rumors of cats attacking Paddington where he's supposed to live, that he may have lost him and he always loved him. And yeah, I mean, whatever. We have a socialist and a conservative politician and their straight sons that are involved with the cats, and I guess it's all coming together. I don't know, really. Oh yes, and also both boys have lost their mothers in violent ways, because you know this happens. Drama. Yeah, and of course, as the night breeze comes in, the cats go away, probably because of the lower temperature. So I guess that if they wait out for the hot summer to go away, it'll be fine. The cats will be harmless by winter. Let's see where this goes, alright? In chapter 11, we do a lot of wrapping up. We have Crowther, John Inglis, and Professor Vole surveying the massacre. Both academics feel very bad for what they did. Vole assumes maybe the cold makes the castles aggressive. Back in the radio station, what's his name, the Australian guy, and his producers are the only people left, and as they're wrapping up their show, the walls cave in and a pack of cats rushes in and smothers them to death, not clawing or biting, they just smother them. Fathers of the Year have their own crises. Duke Inglis is trying to get Paddington to find his son, but he is refused by the police. Meanwhile, Dempsey is taking care of his son. He's feeling really bad for what's happening, and his son is sedated, but he comes out and attacks him, bites his hand. So the Father of the Year starts passing his feral son, and then the police, who is left there for protection, comes in and starts hitting him with a truncheon until the son falls unconscious. Yes, because child abuse is on the menu. This book is yeah, it's not badly written, but when you tell the plot out loud, it's hilarious. And then we have the cats. They're organized into some sort of armies. There are 5 bigger black cats who seem to be the leaders, and there's an empty spot in their gathering. I believe it's for the boy Dempsey, but we'll see. Are preparing for the next attack, I guess. So let's see where it goes. This was chapter 12. Now let's go to chapter 13, and yeah. So as the night falls, people are making plans. There is a meeting when the army informs the city officials and the police that they're planning to go with flamethrowers and wait for the cats to come up and then burn them. And this is a plan that will go very well, I guess, because there hasn't been a rain for 3 weeks now, so everything is brittle and about to burn. Yes, they're going to burn the city down to kill the cats, because that's the army. And as one of the army officers says, this is how we dealt with the yellow devils in Malaysia. You wait for the communists to come in. Yeah, I mean, alright. And meanwhile, in the MP's house, in Dempsey's house, Mark, his son, goes out of sedation. He jumps out of he gets out of the room, and like a cat, he is called by the other cats, so he goes to meet them. John Inglis is asked who was the boy who was taking care of the cats, and he mentions Dempsey's son. So Crowther, Vole and Inglis go to the MP's house to talk to his son, and there they find out that he has disappeared. It's a big surprise, I guess. Svhool asks the father, after Crowther bullies the MP when he tries to be also important politician. He bullies him into submission, because that's the alpha male police detective we're following. Then Svhool asks the MP, asks Dempsey, if his son is afflicted with any of those diseases. He recognizes a kidney disease, so that makes Svhool realize that his son is infected by the same disease that is turning the cats feral. Yeah, big surprise there. We're on page 122. We're going to chapter 14, which is probably the final act of the whole mayhem. And oh boy, that book is both crazy and boring at the same time. It's been a hot minute since last we talked, and I've almost finished the book. So in chapter 14, everybody wakes up the next day, and it's raining and it's kind of chilly, so they're not afraid of attacks, and everybody feels very safe as they're preparing. They find out the dead radio producer and the DJ, and they follow the tunnel where the cats are underground, like like rats, because they have to rip off the rats even if it's a different species, I guess. Then everybody who was living in Paddington has been evacuated in tents in Hyde Park, and the cats attack, leaving a lot dead. But there are army helicopters with flamethrowers who come down and burn the cats away. Still, there were 380 dead the first attack, and on the second attack 700 dead. So yeah, we're in the thousands at the moment, and there is a report about a boy running with the cats. That's what's his name, Mark, and the MP his father has joined our protagonist, the detective, and the two scientists. Protagonists, like they're not protagonists at all. They feel like three guys were there, I guess. But we'll talk about the entire book in a while. Meanwhile, Duke English, the senator, manages to sift through the army, who's not letting him go to his son's place. He goes in there, and he finds a lot of empty cages, and he's assaulted by cats. And the guy, he's a red-blooded Republican. He kills a lot of the cats. He sadistically offs some. One of the bigger leader cats attacks him, and he grabs it and throws sulfuric acid down its throat. Republicans, right? And then after he victoriously runs out of the place, he doesn't see the last cat who attacks him and offs him. And that's pretty much everything but the last 10 pages. So yeah, I'm going to finish this fucker, and then we'll talk about it. Of course, there are some teenage hooligans in a pub, and they break the place apart, and they find a girl hiding in there because she saw the cats. And of course, being young hooligans, what they think of is the R word. So they make an effort. They start their leader, who is 16, the others are 14, start to essay the girl, and then a naked boy comes in, and the leader is like, it's an opportunity to kill him so he can be approached by the gangsters in my neighborhood and live the good life. But they're attacked by the cats, and that's it. Alright, it's the final part of the drama, and some things happen. Our, let's say, heroes, they're in a jeep, and Crowther has a flamethrower, and he is burning cats, and he feels very happy about it. Then a human figure runs out in flames out of the canopy of cats, and that makes him feel very guilty. John, they pass outside John's apartment, and he goes down and sees that the army is taking the body of his father out, and he reads a goodbye note that he left him and he feels guilty because he killed his father. Well, he did want that because of the situation with his sister in the past. Now he understands how wrong he was, but it's too late. The army finally confronts the army of cats and Mark, the boy who is their leader. First, the cats are lulled, they're waiting for something, then Mark gives them the signal and they rush towards the church, the ruins of a church. But the army had followed the tunnels there and they have put explosives in the ruins, so they blow the church up, then burn it. A little girl runs into the ruins and John rushes after her trying to save her, but he's attacked by Mark, who injures John fatally and he dies. Then of course the army throws a lot of napalm into the ruins. Mark comes out of the church burning and his father wants to save him, but Crowther orders a sniper to shoot him down. So he does. Yes, way to go for our heroes, I guess. And as the book ends, we have this woman in the park after the cats are supposed to be dead, but she's attacked by a surviving cat. So we have a sequel bait, as it's supposed to be, alright? Yeah. So that's Cats in a nutshell, and this reading vlog will be very short because this book manages to be extremely hilariously bad and also extremely boring, and that's a very difficult combo to accomplish, but it does that with flying colors. The premise and the story and a lot of the events happening are hilarious. If I take the time to sit down and explain to you what's happening in this book, outside of the context of reading each chapter and trying to say what's happening, it will sound hilarious. So the main story is that we have an American who is the son of a senator that has been estranged because his father was bullying his sister for being ugly to suicide. He moves to England, he watches a seminar by a chemistry professor in biology that is about biological warfare and thinks to himself, what if I remake a biological weapon, an experimental biological weapon in my London apartment? And so he does. He feeds bacteria to cats that makes them insane, especially in high heat. And when there is a heat wave in London and the power fails, they get overwhelmingly hot and they escape. They infect the boy he has left to feed the cats, so the boy becomes one of them. He is also the son of a politician. He gets bullied at school, but he kills one of his bullies with the help of the cats. Then the cats start attacking London, and the army takes flamethrowers all over the town and burning the cats. The end. That's pretty much the story, and it's absurd and also very formulaic. While I was reading the book, I assumed that it was written back in 1977 when the Rats came out. They became a big success, and the publisher's New English Library hired a hack to write a quick novel in the vein of the Rats. I mean, it says in the tradition of the Rats in the cover to cash in the popularity of the book. But no, the Rats were actually published back in 1974, 3 years before this book. So yes, there were plenty of books published in between, including James Herbert's The Fog, which is the sequel, not the sequel, that is his second book, and actually it feels closer to this book, right? I think that while The Rats is supposed to be the book that set the hype for animal attack books in the UK, it was The Fog that created the formula. that everybody imitated, because The Rats, and I'm not sure if you have watched my review of The Rats, is a book that is way too good for the genre or the subgenre it birthed. It's actually a book. That's the big difference. The Rats is a book. Yes, it's about man-eating rats attacking London, but it's done in a way that is very intelligent. It has, yes, the main character is kind of forgettable, but you can feel for that character. And actually, when the violence comes, it's not gratuitous like in many other books, including The Fog. It's actually feels very real, and there is some sort of social commentary about the state of living in the poorer regions of London in that book, and how this can scale up to citywide panic, I guess. In Cats, it all feels very formulaic. The cat attacks they feel both exploitative and also half-hearted. It's like the author knows that he has to include some bits of violence and gore, but he never quite goes into it. And that's a big problem. The characters are non-existent. They make no sense. There's absolutely no effort to create any characterization. They're just working stereotypes, and they fail even at that. The book is extremely short, it's 160 pages long, and The Rats was like about 200 pages, so it's not a big book. Yet it packed a lot more story. And what's interesting that it took 3 years for this book to come out after The Rats, and it was written by Scott Gronmark, who used the pseudonym Nick Sharman. He was working in the PR department of Nell, and then he transitioned to writing horror books in the style of Nell, of New England Library, and so he managed to become full-time author out of them. So basically, I feel like he knew what the audience wanted working in publishing, so he found an opportunity to write what people wanted to read, and it shows. It's a little book. It's like you read it, and yeah, that's it. You read it in an afternoon. It's got killer cats. It's got some gory parts, I guess. Not enough titillating sex, so that's a big minus for the genre. But what can I say? He tries. He tries at some points. All right. There are actually no female characters in this book too. Which is like funny. The writing is very half-baked, and that really stops the book from being enjoyable. And yeah, overall, it's a skip. It's not funny. It's not fun. It's not balls out insane like Rory Sharman's The Sepulchre or Till. It's got two names. That's the golden standard of so bad it's good horror. It's not like Mark Rawson's Ghoul, which is also balls out insane. It's boring. It's bad and boring. And if it was written by someone more seasoned, I guess, or with more gusto, it would have been enjoyable. But it's a bore. So yeah, not great. Not a great Animal Attack book. There are better Animal Attack books out there, and there are equally clumsy books that are not as weak in plot and character. And yeah, the bar is very low, and Cats just fumble under it, which is a shame. So yeah, not a great read. So, have you read The Cats? What's your opinion? I know that Kelsey, who is organizing the the nostalgic April readathon, is like, yes, I think that the book is both hilariously bad and boring at the same time too. So yeah, it's not just me, but yeah, it's a miss. It's a huge miss. Leave your comment below if you enjoy this book, and also if you enjoy this reading vlogs, or if you want just reviews. I thought it would be more fun, but it was not. And maybe I should go and find another copy of The Sepulchre and do a reading vlog on it, because that book is hilarious. You need to have a vlog about it. So thank you for watching.